Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Career Talk with OG. This month, we are kicking off a series of having special guests with us because of Hispanic Heritage Month. Hispanic Heritage Month, we kicked it off on Friday, this last Friday. And today, I have the pleasure to have our first distinguished guest, Dr. Anthony Cruz, or as he allowed me, he sent an email as we were going back and forth about scheduling this session. And he said, Tony, I'm like, oh my gosh, now we're buds. I think we just virtually kind of like, just salute over here. Tony, I'm really excited to have you here on Career Talk with OG. Welcome. Bienvenido.
Thank you, Oscar. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. Yeah, I mean, you got to call me Tony because usually if somebody says Anthony, they're either a bill collector or I don't know something else that they're somebody's asking me for money for something. So people that know me call me Tony. So I really appreciate it, even though I put Anthony everywhere, because that is my given name. But it's great, first of all, to be here with you today and to share with your audience some tidbits, some information, whatever, as this conversation evolves today.
Yes, no, thank you, Tony. And everyone, today we're going to be talking about the topic of leadership, and leadership as it relates to leading both students and staff, obviously in the academia space. But let me just give you a little bit of background on Tony's professional career. So he currently serves as president of Kendall Campuses of Miami-Dade College. And during his 27 years of higher education experience, Tony has used his expertise to increase educational opportunities, enhance the student experience, and bolster student success. He's worked at several community colleges and universities, including St. Louis Community College, St. Clair Community College, Cincinnati State Technical and Community College, Broward College, Kaplan University, and Florida International University. And by the way, Tony, we saw each other last week in Chicago, and I see also that you are a native. Is it Chicagoan? Is that the right?
Chicagoan. Yeah, I'm a native from Chicago. My parents came from Cuba in the early '60s, and they ended up first here in Miami for a little bit of time, and then ended up living in Chicago for 16 years. So was born in Chicago and moved when I was 9 down to South Florida and to Miami, and lived here for most of my life. About 15 years ago, went back up to the Midwest and worked in Cincinnati, Dayton, Ohio, and then in St. Louis. And then 4 years ago, came back for the opportunity to be a campus president here at Miami-Dade College. So it's a journey, right?
Yes.
I started my higher ed career 30 years ago in '93 at Florida International University. Kind of took a little break in between, a few years. 20 years ago, I took a break from higher ed and actually was a financial advisor, stockbroker for 3 years.
Ándale.
That's something that most people don't know. I did that for 3 years. Unfortunately, after 9/11, stock market went down. There was a lot of issues. Decided to go back to higher ed. Good thing for me, good, in the sense that got me back to really where my passion is. So it's really good to have, live these 27 years in higher education, see a lot of things change, but a lot of things remain the same, unfortunately, in the case of, there's a lot of need out there, a lot of individuals that need a higher education, need to be prepared for the future. And that's my mission, that's my passion. My mission is really to help those individuals get where they really want to get to.
Well, and see, it is this passion that you have. We're connected on LinkedIn. We've been following each other. I don't know for how long, but so as an introvert, I observe a lot, and I'm very active on LinkedIn, as you are too as well. And when we started following each other, and I started seeing your post, number one, I don't know if you know this, Tony, but a lot of professionals in your and just academia in general, but
Right.
especially in your leadership role as a college president, they're not active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And so I saw you being active. Number two, I see the type of post that you share where you share a lot about the topics of leadership,
Mhm.
serving others. You uplift not only students, but you're uplifting staff, you're uplifting the community. And that caught my attention. And I said to myself, I need to reach out to this guy and have him as a guest. And so, Tony, let's get into the topic here of leadership. And my first
Sure.
question to you is, what is your definition of leadership?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know if I think about it that much about that definition, but I think that for me, at the core of leadership is integrity and leading by example.
Mm-hmm.
And in leadership, you're talking about higher education. Many times in higher education, we lead from the ivory tower, which I think is not really the place that we need to be, given the
Mm-hmm.
fact, especially the institutions that I've worked for, are really about helping the community, about building
Mm-hmm.
the community and building people up, right? And
Yes.
so, can't lead from the ivory tower. You got to lead from the ground, from where the
Yes.
people are. And I think that's what leadership, authentic leadership, is all about. Is really that integrity, leading by example, giving of yourself, and showing people that even though you may be in a leadership position, you're like them. You're like everybody else. And
Mm-hmm.
fortunately, though, because you're in a leadership position, you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility more than anybody else to really, open opportunities for others. Right? I have the opportunity. I have the resources that are given to me through the institution to really open those resources. So I think
Yes.
that leadership really is about integrity, is about really about leading by example. I mean, that's what I think leadership is all about. And it's not. I know people say that it's like a cliche. It's not about the title, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the
Yes.
title gives me the ability to help a lot more
Yes.
than if I didn't have this title.
Correct.
But I feel that everyone on this campus that works with me and all the other individuals that have worked with me throughout the years, we're on the same level. We're trying to do things to make the community better. And
Mm-hmm.
the only way to do that is to be authentic, to have that integrity, and to show others that you can lead by example.
Yes. I I love what you said about not leading from the ivory tower and really coming down to the community, to the students, to the staff, and everyone. You know what? I saw Tony last week exactly do this, what he mentioned. And Tony, you don't even realize. I'm telling you, I've been watching you, my friend. Okay.
I
Um, but
got
I
to really watch
noticed.
myself now, Oscar. You're scaring me.
Tell you like you're scaring me, Oscar. No, Tony, so you and your team spoke last week at the conference at the leadership symposium. There was a session, and what I noticed about you is that you were engaging with other people, attendees. You came by to our table. We were talking. The exhibitor. And see, oftentimes when I see a speaker, they speak and they can't wait to get off the stage and leave.
Right.
And here was Tony, everyone, walking around, like I said, talking to él es el mero mero, el jefe. He's el presidente. He's the president of this college. He has a session and he's out there still engaging with everyone. And so, Tony, you're right. I see you're this style. And I really believe in coming down and leading with folks, because what happens is those people that report to you, the community, the students, the parents,
Mhm.
they just feel welcome, they feel heard, they feel understood. I love that
Well, thank
style of
you.
you.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you noticing that. But I think it's part of, and that's something that's evolved, right? Because I don't think, just like you said before, you're an introvert. I'm an introvert. I've just learned to. I've learned to manage this and try to, I've realized this. If I don't do that, if I don't talk to people, if I don't walk around and have these interactions, I think we're missing out on. I think for me, from first and foremost, on learning, right? I'm learning from
Yes.
others. I'm learning
Yes.
what people are saying, people are feeling, understanding them a little bit better. And also, I may be able to be of service to somebody. I may be able to help somebody, mentor somebody,
Yes.
answer questions for them. So it's a two-way street. But I think
Yes.
that the interaction has to come really, I have to initiate it because, like you said, some people may see me in that setting and say, well, I'm not going to talk to him, or why would he talk to me? Or I'm afraid of talking to him because he's a college president. I don't
Yeah.
want people to feel that way. I want people to feel that I'm approachable, and everything that I
Yes.
do, whether I do it through social media or do events here on campus, I want the students, faculty, staff, the public, and the community I engage, because I do a lot in the community. I want them to feel like I'm approachable, that they can talk
Yes.
to me, and maybe I can help them, and maybe I can't. I don't know, but at least the conversation will be there, because I feel
Hmm.
that's extremely important. So I will come out of my introvert self and get out of my comfort zone and force myself to do this, even though I think sometimes it's very hard for me to do it, to be honest. But
Yeah.
I feel that I need to force myself to do it because I think more good will come from it than if I just did
Absolutely.
my presentation and walked away and went back to my room, or went to I don't know, wherever else, a restaurant or something
Yes.
right after doing that. I think it's critical. And that's something that I've adopted in basically any setting,
Yes.
whether I'm out in the community or here on campus, or like you said, at an event like that conference.
Absolutely. It's a great leadership quality to have. I mean, I also do public speaking, and oftentimes I see and come to realize over time that it's after you speak where the magic really happens, where the
Yes.
connection really happens. And, as you said, there could be someone out there that is waiting to ask you a question, or maybe they're, like you said, a little afraid to approach you. But the fact that you make yourself approachable, it just kind of strengthens or leads to that. Um, another question for you,
Yeah.
Tony. When you think back at your leadership skills, your traits,
Mhm.
tell us who are some people that have influenced these leadership traits that you have, and in what way?
That's good. Again, another great question. I've tried to take a little bit from everyone that the people who have been my supervisors, along the way. I think that I've modeled some of their behavior, learned. I think, you take the best parts of everyone and try
Yeah.
to emulate them, try to emulate
Hmm.
and see how that works. Again, everybody's an individual. Some things may not work for me that work for them, but I've done that. And I don't think I can point to one specific person, but I would say that every time that if you could, when you read off all the schools that I've worked for, I've worked for a lot of schools and I've been in a lot of places that I've learned from each of those places. I've learned from individuals, but sometimes it's not just about the people who I report to, the people who have been my bosses, my supervisors, but I think I've learned a lot also from the individuals that I've supervised. That's
Hmm.
also a learning experience and really formed kind of my leadership style and who I've become over the years. I think the biggest challenge, Oscar, that has been for me, and I think that I've worked on this really hard in the last, let's say, 5 to 7 years, or maybe 8 years, is communication. And
Mm.
meaning, it's easy for me to talk to you and to talk to others, individually, or even get up in a group of people and do a presentation. That's never been a difficult thing for me. But the communication of trying to get information out to people that are not in front of you, right?
Hmm.
Like, how do we communicate as leaders and that's why for me, since the pandemic started, social media has been such a great platform because I've been able to communicate more effectively than ever.
Yes.
I struggled with this several years ago. 10 years ago, I was talking to somebody. Actually, I was talking to somebody who was an executive coach. I had an executive coach, and one of the things I brought to the person's attention was, how can I improve my communication? Because I feel like sometimes I'm not getting the information out to as many people as I need to, or the right groups of people. And an email is not the best communication,
Right.
way of communicating, but something that we have to use. But I've been trying, little by little in the last, let's say 10 years, to try to improve that communication. And I think that communication has been, essential when it comes to my leadership style and what I can do as a leader But sometimes we lose sight of that. And sometimes we lose sight, like if we're only focusing on the people in front of us, we know we're missing out on a lot of people that need that information, that need to get
Yes.
also that message out to, that important message out. And social media has been great for that reason. I think it sweeps very widely. You can use now, obviously you can use pictures, you can use the text, you can use music,
Yes.
you can use video, you can use so many things now that have been added to LinkedIn and Instagram and others, that it makes my job and my ability to communicate and really message people much more, a much easier thing for me to do now than it was maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well, and you do an excellent job because, like I said, we're connected on LinkedIn. I see your post. I know before going live, you mentioned that you're also active on Instagram.
Yes.
So I'm going to be following you on Instagram. And Tony, along these lines of communication, one of the things that I see and hear a lot, because I do a lot of work for colleges and universities with regards to our culturally relevant career readiness training. So I engage with career services directors, deans, and above.
Yeah.
And I often hear from these professionals that they don't know what to post. They don't have time, or like on LinkedIn, it's too professional. It's a professional platform, so I don't
Sure.
know, like what to post. What are some simple tips that you have for these professionals so that they can better communicate, their message out, given the lack of time or experience or concerns with, but what advice do you have for these folks?
Well, I think that first, I think time is a consideration, but I believe that as you post more and you get used to it, you get faster at it, right? And
True.
so the thing is that you also have to be thinking about the content. What is it, the
Yes.
content that you want to create? And I'm always thinking of ways of like, okay, is this worthy of a post? Should I really be sharing this? I
Yes.
could share a lot more than I do. I probably post enough, but content is very big, and you have to be thinking about this content, not all the time, but you have to be cognizant of this as you go through
Yes.
your day. Couple of things. I think that, depending on your profession, like obviously in higher education, we have events, and we have events that have an impact both on our students, also
Yes.
our faculty and staff. I try to do as much as I can about showcasing those events,
Yes.
making sure that those are out there. The other thing is whenever somebody, wins some type of prize, an accolade, trying to make sure that you're praising that person, that you're recognizing
Yes.
that person. That's another kind of post. But also I've done where I've really thought more introspectively, and I have every Saturday, I do my Saturday reflection on
Yes.
it's mostly around leadership. And so that's something that came about maybe a year or year and a half ago, that I started doing every Saturday, because I felt like in addition to these events or the accolades or maybe even accolades that I've received, those are great things to share. But I think
Mhm.
that you also want to share your thoughts. And sometimes
Yes.
we get caught up in like, don't have time for it. The great thing about LinkedIn now is that you can also schedule your posts.
Yes.
So many times if I have a moment, I will schedule that Saturday reflection, 2 or 3 days before that,
Yes.
it comes around. Or if I know that I have multiple events coming, I may be doing this ahead of time. So then, at 7 o'clock in the morning, my post goes live.
Yeah.
I think that the time is an issue for all of us. We're trying to squeeze a lot into every day. But I really believe that if, it's almost gotten to the point with our society that if we're not posting, if we're not showing these things through a social media platform or platforms, it almost is like it's not happening. And I know it is happening. I'm not trying to
Yes.
minimize that, but
Yes.
there's a reality to this, that we need to be showcasing the things we're doing for our professional brand, but as well as our institutions, our organizations as well, because anytime I do anything, most of the time on LinkedIn, I'm referring to Miami-Dade College and what I'm
Yes.
doing here. When I was at St. Louis, I was doing the same thing. When I was at St. Clair, I was doing the same thing. Now, I do much more of that now than I did years past. I've been on LinkedIn for 12 years, so it's not,
Mhm.
I'm not new to LinkedIn. I've been doing it for years. But in the beginning, I was probably more of like watching people do things, right? I wasn't really actively
Yes.
learning it. over the years, I've gotten better at it and just gotten more proficient in the way that I post. But I really believe that the time isn't it can be an issue. But I hope that those out there won't use that as an excuse for not to do it. Right. I think that
Right.
you take the time to do it. And again, it's about, sometimes some people do better. I don't do this, but writing down ideas of what
Hmm.
content you're going to be sharing.
Yes.
In my case, I just think through the calendar, my calendar of events,
Yep.
and I don't post everything that happens in a day, because sometimes I'll go to 6 events, 5 events in one day. I'm
Of
not going to do
course.
it, but I will take the one that I think has the greatest impact, that
Yes.
most people want to hear about, most people want to know about, and that's the one I post about. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of tools out there, but definitely something that I encourage everybody. Again, it's twofold. It's your personal brand, but it's also your institutional or organizational brand that you're promoting, and both of those are equally as important. And so
Yes.
I want everybody to think that way and kind of think, yes, I can do it. And it's all baby steps. You got to start somewhere. I have friends that have never posted, ever, and they're on there. They'll still see it and they'll say, "Oh, I like that. I like that you did that. I like that." And I actually had a friend of mine that told me a few years ago. It says, "You post too much." That was I've gotten to learn that you can't post enough.
Yeah.
And again,
Exactly.
kind of,
Exactly.
and if you post many things in one day on LinkedIn, kind of you're kind of eating into your next post. Sometimes like
Yes.
they start
Yes.
the algorithms, you kind of start messing with that a bit, and maybe not getting the visibility on one post that you did earlier because now you posted a new one. So there's
Yeah.
some negatives to that, but at the same time, I believe that if it's with good intentions, and really
Yes.
it's all about promoting, again, your personal brand and your institutional brand, and also helping, shed light on an issue that your students are facing or faculty and staff are facing. That's why we do it. So I think it's
Yes.
really important. And I hope that those out there that are thinking about LinkedIn and other platforms will take a chance. Take a chance
Yes.
and start doing it, and you'll see how easy it can be.
Yes. Everyone, please, because this is being recorded, okay, and this is gonna be part of the podcast. Rewind these last 5-7 minutes of this tips, because Tony just gave some amazing, very simple tips to communicate. This is all under
Mhm.
communication, and
All
social
communication.
media. Absolutely. Social media is the problem. It's not going away. It's not going, as much as some of us complain, don't like it, et cetera, and so forth. It's not going away. It is another tool. Just like, when the TV got invented, the
Sure.
radio, et cetera, cable, TV,
Mhm.
when MTV came out. Okay,
Because
I
we
remember
remember
that.
when there were only 3 channels, right, Oscar? You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember black and white and going up to
Yeah. You were
forget
the
the remote
remote.
control.
We
Yeah.
were the remote.
Yeah,
The
go
kids were the
ahead.
remote, right?
Exactly.
It's like, "Come out."
Sí. Ven, despacito, que vas a quebrar la televisión. No, this is great, great on point tips here. Thank you, Tony, for sharing this.
Sure.
Tony, let's move on to talk about leadership. First, I want to talk about students as it relates, but let's talk about your staff and your team. So, you went through the fellows program, you
Yep.
mentor people, you advise people, and in your role identify up and coming leaders probably on your campus, to mentor them and so forth. What are some leadership advice that you would give an up and coming, not yet quite a president,
Yeah.
but someone that has the desire to become one day a campus, a college president? What are some leadership advice that you would give this individual?
Well, I think first and foremost is they need to. So there's a few things. So if we're talking about college, right, and universities, I
Hmm.
would say number
Yes.
one is if you want to be an executive leadership role at a college or university, you need to get your doctorate. So that's number one. Okay. Now, I was fortunate to be able to become a dean, still having my master's, not having my doctorate, but the doctorate, when I received my doctorate, that opened up doors to a vice presidency, then a vice chancellor, then now campus president. And if I didn't
Mm,
have my doctorate, that wouldn't happen. So I say number one is, that's your ticket, right? That's your ticket to the opportunity. Doesn't mean that it's going to get you in the door, but the door opens at least. Like the door is open. It's not locked. It's like the door is open for many, many more opportunities. So number one is that. Secondly, I think is to get involved as much as possible on your college or university campus in different types of outside of your role, right? We all have roles, and our roles sometimes are very, you're kind of like siloed into different roles on a college or university campus. So there are opportunities to be on different committees that you can join and learn and be on a committee that kind of it represents different facets of that institution, different departments or divisions, and you learn from other people. And I think it's also very important as you're learning about other divisions and other people and how other things work is to seek out a mentor. I think it's extremely important to seek out individuals that you think it's not that person is going to help you get necessarily to that level, but to try to start having conversations with somebody that's already at that level so they can help you understand what you need to do and having regular conversations. So Oscar, at any given time, I probably have 2 or 3 individuals that I'm mentoring, and they could be, and at this point, they're all over the country. They're not necessarily, right now I have somebody here in Miami, I have somebody in Texas, I have another person in Chicago. Okay. So that is something that I believe that is, and I'll be 100% transparent on this. I don't believe, there have been some people that have influenced my career. Okay. No doubt. And have given me opportunities, but I don't really believe I had the mentor, that person, or mentors that helped me the way that I thought that I needed. And again, people have helped me a lot. It's not about help. It's about mentoring, right? It's a different thing than saying somebody gave me an opportunity. They hired me for this position that got me to this other position, or they told me about this other opportunity. Those are really great things. Those are friends, colleagues that help you. But a mentor is a little bit more than that. And I unfortunately, so far, I haven't had a mentor per se. So I believe that it's important for me as an individual to mentor individuals. And these individuals, most of the people I'm mentoring right now are not people who have ever, worked with me. They're people that are outside and they're in other states. But I have continued to have conversations with individuals that I've worked with before and years ago. And I love seeing people ascend, go into those executive levels. I love seeing people become deans and vice presidents and campus and college presidents. And I've seen that. And it's almost like I liken it to like in football, NFL, right?
Yes.
Yeah, coaches like Bill Belichick, and they call, the coaching tree, right? And you have individuals that have coached as an assistant coach or whatever for Bill Belichick specifically. It could be other coaches. And there's a long, coaching tree of all those individuals that worked with Bill Belichick over the years, and now they're head coaches. Well, I would like to see everybody that I've worked with in the past that I've mentored or worked with, and I want to see them achieve what I've achieved and even more. I want to see them do even greater things that I've been able to achieve. And the only way one of the ways that happens is mentoring. So, I believe that if you're out there and you want to, continue climbing that ladder, please remember to seek out a mentor. They're not going to seek you out. You need to seek them out, and that's what happens. They will ask to you to be, they will ask. So seek them out. You're the one asking so they can be your mentor. They're not going to necessarily seek you out. And so I think that those are important tips, that I would give to somebody that's looking to ascend and to go into executive leadership roles in higher education.
Excellent tips and great nuggets. Again, another rewind here, folks. Another rewind here. So, Tony, a question that I oftentimes get. So, I agree with you 100%. Get that mentor. So, how does someone seek a mentor? How do they approach a mentor? How does an Oscar Garcia approach Tony to ask about would you be my mentor? Any guidance there?
Well, I think it's sometimes it starts with a conversation. You gotta make sure that the mentor is a good fit for you, right? It's a fit both ways. So the way it's happened in the past is that somebody has reached out to me through maybe somebody else, right? I don't know the person directly, but that person knows them, and they basically say, hey, reach out to Tony about this position that you're interested in. It's not even here; it's in another place or whatever. But they're interested in getting some insights into that institution or insights into that type of position that they're seeking.
Yeah.
Then they reach out to me. They start talking to me. There's a good segue right into having that conversation. Through that conversation, if you feel that person, you get along with that person, you seem to, really gel with that person. You just have to ask. You have to ask. You say, I really want to do what you're doing, but right now I really need help in trying to achieve that. I can't really, I have a boss at work, but that person is really not open to that. Possibly, that's happens a lot. Is that open to doing that type of mentoring? Would you be willing to mentor me? It's as simple as that. But you have to have. It's not just picking somebody out like on LinkedIn and saying, you find somebody that has a lot of the things that you're looking for. You're reaching out to them and say, hey, you're going to be my mentor. I don't think that that's going to work. But I think you have to have that initial conversation and try to understand, hey, what is? Are we connecting? Or are we aligned in the way that we think? And then use that opportunity to ask.
Yes.
That's all you can do. I mean, that's the best. And now with, and there's always all these there's all these other connections, right, that we have. So it's not just about me directly with somebody else, but like I said before, I know so many people across the country. They may know somebody that knows me, and that might be the good entry point into to have that conversation.
Right. Yeah. Tony, I love how you just kept it very simple here, because in a way, and I mean, not that obviously that I'm seeking your mentorship or not or anything, but you kind of, the way you described it is sort of like our relationship here. First, like I said, you caught my attention based on your post on LinkedIn. I started following your content. I started getting to get to know you better, your style, and then I realized, like, wow, I agree with many of the things that Tony, his style, his leadership style, the things that he posts and etc. And then, look, I mean, I didn't know you were going to be at the conference. You didn't know we were going to be there.
Right.
And
we
all
had
of a
no
sudden
idea.
we run it. Yeah, we had no idea. And then we meet now in person, and we further, at least from my perspective, like confirm what a cool dude this guy is, Tony here. And so again, you just naturally let this. We did some looking into each other in terms of our online presence and what we're sharing, but then we just sort of kind of let things naturally progress, and so forth. So
and it happens, and this happens. I mean, I'm not saying it happens all the time, but it happens, and because of what happened during the pandemic, and people started, like kind of communicating and reaching through, using, I think, these platforms a lot more. It opened a lot more doors to people having this type of, I'll tell you, there's a good friend of mine that I've known now for about, maybe it's 4 years. About a year and a half ago, I met her for the first, and I never met her in person. It was through LinkedIn, another professional, another higher education person. And I ended up doing a keynote in Houston about a year and a half ago. She invited me there for the organization, do the keynote. The first time I ever met her was then, but we had been communicating for all that time. So it's incredible. And we had meaningful discussions through LinkedIn, and then later on, obviously through texting or calling, and things like that. But that's how it was initiated. And I want people to think, and that's like, it's not necessarily a mentor-mentee relationship. It's just friends and colleagues, right? A colleague type of relationship. But those are just as valuable, because these are, we don't know what we don't know. We learn from each other, and everybody can learn from one another regardless of their position. And it's great that when you meet people from other states, other cities, other places, even other countries, because what they share is so rich, right? There's so much there that you can learn from each other. And that's why I love these types of things, like, the connection we've made. These type of connections happen more often than not for me, because again, I'm open to, kind of having the dialogue first and foremost. And then from there, things happen like this show and other things that can happen in the future. I love it, so that's not what I'm all about, but I think that it's helped me grow, right? As a person,
Absolutely.
as a professional, it's helped me
Yes.
grow. Yeah.
No, yeah, I agree with you. Everything that you described, I've experienced that too since the pandemic. And like you said, um, the pandemic, one of the silver linings of the pandemic is that it's made it where as society, I believe as a whole, we're more open to these online communications and so forth. But Tony, let's move on now next to leadership, but as it relates to students.
Mhm.
So speaking of the pandemic, um, unfortunately, one of the you know bad things about the pandemic is the impact that that has had on students' emotional well-being, their learning, enrollment. I at least
Definitely.
out here in California, I've seen and I hear from colleges and universities they're struggling right with enrollment and et
Yes.
cetera and so forth. What 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 as it relates to a college president interacting, engaging with students and leading students,
Mhm.
what advice do you have to lead students? Because some of these students, I mean, honestly, they're your customers. They're your
Oh, they
customers,
are.
right? Yeah,
They're the reason why I'm here. Definitely.
yeah,
I think that again, like you're saying, I'm keeping it simple, Oscar.
yes,
I'm keeping it real simple. And the bottom line is, you can't engage students from your office. You have to engage students where they are. Okay.
mhm,
So that means a couple of things. One is you have to engage them through where they get their information mostly, which is through
mhm,
social media. So number one, you
mhm,
have to engage students where they are, which is through social media. That's one place. But secondly, it's physically, is you got to go where the students are. You got
yes,
to go on your campus and go to the events. I go to as many of events as I can, and I interact with the students. They see me there. They know that at least I care, and then that also, obviously, I'm a representative of the college, of this campus, and they see that we care.
yes.
And I have meetings with our student government association officers on a regular basis. Actually, one of them works here in my office as well, so it's
Oh,
a great
awesome.
way to have my finger on the pulse of what's happening with the student body. I go to classes. I visit classes at the beginning of the semester. I visit classes, say hi to students, see what's going on. I also do something once a month, is something I call Colada with Cruz. So I give
Mm.
out cafe to our
Ah,
students, and it's not just our students; it's also our faculty and staff. I set up somewhere that's very open here on campus and spend an hour giving out cafe and interacting, right, and
yes,
talking to the students, talking to faculty and staff, and meeting them where they are, right.
yeah,
And students really enjoy it, faculty and staff enjoy it, and that way I get to engage them. I go to student performances. We have a marvelous, performing arts program here. I'll go see students sing, dance, do plays, whatever the case may be. I will show up. That also gives the support to the faculty member who's leading that performance as well. But I'm also, giving my support to the students, as that are
mhm,
in those performances. So you can't lead from your office. I
mhm,
spend time in my office, believe it, but I don't. But you got to be out there. You got to
yes,
know. I want to know. And when I first got here to this campus, to the Kendall campus, about a year and a half ago, there were things that were happening, events that were happening. I'm like, wait a minute. And I came from a smaller campus, and they were like, wait a minute. How come I don't know that this is happening? Like, I want to know every single event that's happening on campus. Doesn't mean I can attend every single event, but
sure,
I will try my best to, even if I have to. Sometimes there are three things going on at the same time, and I will pop into all three things, within an hour, so students know that I'm supporting them. So
yes,
students have to know that we care about them. And our
mhm,
faculty do an amazing job in the classroom. So that's where it starts. That's where really,
mhm,
that's the core of who we are, that teaching and learning mission. And that's happening in the classroom. And our professors are doing a wonderful job of engaging our students. But the students go to class because that's part of their, they have to go to class, right? So they
of
go to
course,
class because that's why they're here. So I have to, in addition to what they're doing, the faculty are doing, and what our advisors are doing, our financial aid people, our student life people, they're all doing a marvelous job as well of engaging those students and creating these opportunities. But I see it as an integral part of my job, and also my cabinet members, all the deans and the directors that report to me directly. They know that it's part of their job to also support our students at these events, to show up when they
Yes.
can, to do that and
Correct.
show their support. So
Correct.
that's really how I think students realize that not only are they, we show them how important they are to us, but that really shows that we care, and
Mhm.
that they are part of us, and that we're all part of one great family here at the Kendall campus. And that's really what I want to demonstrate to them. And again, I'm not perfect. I can't be everywhere. Everybody that reports
Of
to me
course.
can't be everywhere, but we want to show that we want to create that sense of belonging, which a lot of
Yes.
students, especially students that go commuter colleges like this one, we don't have residence halls. So we have to show students you belong here. We care
Yes.
about you, and you belong here. And that's how we do it through everybody else, because I'm only one person. I only do this much when it comes to those things. I'm
Yeah.
talking about all those individuals, whether it be in academic affairs, student affairs, whether it be our public safety officers, our custodians.
Yes.
Everybody is on the
Yes.
same, we're on the same wavelength when it comes to our students and how important they are. Because at the end
Right.
of the day, Oscar, if we didn't have students, there's no reason to have a college or university. So that's why we're doing what we're doing.
Yes. Yes. Beautifully said, Tony. Beautifully said. And I come from the private sector, and as I was listening to you right now describe how to lead and engage students, you start off by saying you can't lead from the ivory tower. You got to go to where the students are.
Mhm.
And it reminds me when I worked in the private sector in the tech, about how deals are closed or won and closed on the golf course,
On the golf course, yeah, for sure.
because
Yeah,
that's where everything, we all relax, casual, you get to know the other person, et cetera, and so forth.
right.
And what you were describing right now, it's sort of kind of, that was the vision that I had, my, how I could relate to it. And you're right. And the other thing too is that what you described, Tony, is something that in Latino culture we talk about, but
Mhm.
we talk about it from the form of mi casa es tu casa. Mi
Right.
casa es tu casa, right?
That's
Just making that belonging, creating that sense of belonging and welcoming.
And we're an institution, that 80%, Latinos, Latinas, right? So 80% of our student population. So that is part of our culture, part of what we have to continue. And that's why I always call, this is the Kendall campus family, La Familia. That's what we're trying to build here. And
Yeah,
whether it be a student or be a faculty or staff member, they should feel that way. They should feel that they're at home. They're with their
yes,
family and they're at home. And that also happens. You mentioned, I know that in your background, you worked for a chamber, right? You were a chamber,
yes, I did.
president of a
Yes, I did.
chamber. And I
Chamber of
work a
Commerce.
lot with the chambers here. There are several chambers that I work with, and I'm very involved in those chambers, because part of this is for our students. I have to always be looking for opportunities for our students. So whether it be jobs or internships, that's how I find those. I find them
Yeah,
by the relationships that I build outside of this institution with those chambers of commerce. Those, not just chambers, but the businesses in those chambers. Also, a very
correct.
strong relationship with the presidents of those chambers. It's an
Yes.
essential part of what I do, because people will see me out in the community and say, "Why are you here?" Like, they will ask me, because many times I'm the only higher ed person at a chamber meeting or a chamber luncheon or a chamber networking event. I may be the
Yeah,
only one. I go, "Good. I'm the only one."
yes,
I got a lot of that means I have a lot of opportunities for our students, because if nobody else wants to come to these things, that isn't, a dean, a vice president, or a college president or university president doesn't want to come to these things, I'm okay with that. That gives me more time and more
yes,
opportunity from our students to engage these people and understand, for the businesses to understand what we can provide, from an
yes,
educational standpoint for their employees. But in addition to that, what opportunities are available for our students? I want to be able
yes,
to provide the best internship opportunities, the best job opportunities for our students. So when they leave here, they're going to great places, to work, because ultimately that's what our students are here for. Yes, number one, in education, and they're going to get a stellar education. But once that education, they've received that education, they want to use it, right? They want to
Yes,
get the
correct.
best job possible. And that's what we're here for. We're here to make sure that we're building that pipeline into the workforce where those students will be able to achieve their dreams. They'll be able to support their families. They'll be able to, do whatever they envisioned that they thought they were going to do. The dream, whatever the dreams are, we want to make those dreams come true. But it's going to happen by, first of all, and most importantly, that foundation, providing them with the best education possible, but then providing them with really great opportunities in the workforce to get them ready and make them, the best that they can be.
Yeah. Tony, I love the way you think, my friend. I love it. I love the way you think. You're on point. Last question here. And I have up your LinkedIn profile, your post, and there is a post that you shared about a week ago, maybe a little over a week ago. And in your post, you talk about the 3 pillars of giving our time, talent, and treasure. The 3 T's.
Yes.
Time, talent, and treasure. Tell us what, elaborate here on on these 3 pillars.
Definitely. So we recently celebrated Miami-Dade College's 63rd birthday. Okay, we were open in 1960. Great 60 years of making an impact in the community. And as part of that, we do fundraising for scholarships, right? Our foundation does a lot in order to increase the number of dollars that are donated for scholarships. But sometimes people think about money as being that treasure being the only thing that we can contribute. And we definitely have much more to give as individuals. We have, like you said, the time and talent, right? And I'm a big believer that time, what is that? Well, when I have a mentor or mentors that I'm helping, that's time that I'm spending, and I'm actually giving that to somebody. I'm not saying that, and when I do it with them, but it is something that I'm giving of myself, that time.
Of course.
And then, that time that I'm giving to that mentor, or the time that I'm spending, is also even with your own family, the time that the quality time that you spend with your time. And that's something that I personally believe is something that, like people say, what are the languages of love? Have you ever seen that?
The 5 love languages.
So time, or I don't know what the actual thing of it's something related to time. That's my love language, is the time. If I am one that will give you as much time as you need in order for whatever you need, right? So that I feel like if I had the time, I will make the time, and I will share with you that time that hopefully maybe you need some answers, you need some advice, you need some guidance, or maybe not. Maybe you just need somebody to listen to, right? Whatever the case may be, time is my love language, right? And then talent, there's a lot of talent that each of us have that we can share with others. During the event the other day, we had a very prominent social media comedian from Miami that's very well known in Florida now, Mr. Red, Alex Arias, and he came in and did a little presentation. Now he's a comedian, and he brought something. He gave his talent, his time and talent to us that day, because he made our students laugh. He came in, he didn't do a comedy set, but he said very funny things and connected with them. So he's using his talent and his time and his treasure to help this college and this campus. And I think that all of us have something, maybe all 3, possibly if we're very blessed, we may have all 3 to give to others as we give and try to make others, their lives better, more fulfilled. Or maybe it's just one of those things, and that's fine. But I think that all of us have at least one of those 3 things that we can give to somebody else or give to others in order to make their lives better. So I think that that's something that all of us should be thinking about as leaders, whether you're in higher education or you're somebody that in the private sector, it doesn't matter. I really believe that if we can at least do one of the 3, and if we can do all 3, even better. But 2 out of 3, that's even better than that, right? Better than 1. But if we can do all 3, that's marvelous. But I encourage everybody to think about it that way. Think about how, you can use one of those 3 or all 3 to help others. And I know that we all have it. We all have some talent, right? I'm sure
Yes.
everybody has a talent, you know, even if you
Yeah.
don't even think you have it, you have it. We all have time, regardless if you think that you have time or not. You can make time for the people that you care about. And then I
Yeah.
think the treasure piece, you know, okay, some have more treasure than others, right? But people think, well, if I can't give $5,000 and I'm not giving, or it's not, I don't have treasure. No, you give $10. If you can give
Yes.
$10 to a great cause, give the $10 to that great cause, and you're going to make an impact. You know, it's
Yes.
not going to be as big as an impact as a person that gave $5,000, but it is an impact. And that's one message that we give to our employees here as they give for that day, for IMMDC Day. We always say, like, I want everybody to donate. You know, even if it's $1, donate, because that makes a difference at the end. That's going to make our students who are seeking, who are need scholarships and are needy, that's going to give them the opportunity to get that scholarship that they need.
Absolutely. Well, Tony, I want to thank you because today on Career Talk with OG, you gave us your talent, your time, and many, many golden treasures, nuggets of treasures of
Thank you.
leadership wisdom. And no, it's really been a pleasure to have you here. I have a feeling like that we could talk for a few more hours here, you and I, on
Definitely.
leadership and so forth. But no, muchísimas gracias again for just being who you are, for setting the tone for your staff, your team, the community, the college, the students, and just overall in the space, the academia of just being, as we say in Mexico, a leader. Hashtag chingón. Okay, you're amazing, Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Gracias, Oscar. I really appreciate that. Agradezco mucho esta oportunidad. And we're, you know, it's all about growth, right? And and I hope that with the information that we've shared today and we've discussed during our conversation, I hope somebody out there gets, you know, takes a few of these nuggets and be able to use them in their own career and their own journey and maybe even personal life. It doesn't matter. I think all those things are, to me, those things are all intertwined. You know, I think they're all important. Obviously, our personal lives are much more important, but nonetheless, they're all intertwined. We give up our days. We work more than we're at home. So we want to make sure that I want everybody out there gets something out of this and you know, does what they believe is really their passion, right? We have to have, it has to be here in the heart what we do, and we have to love what we do. Amen. So I hope that those of you out there are going to do something that you love. Continue doing it. If you're doing it, continue doing what you love. If you haven't found it yet, I know you can find it one day.
Amen. Well, muchísimas gracias, hermano. Please, folks, connect with Tony. Angelica just shared in the comments Tony's LinkedIn URL. You're going to love his content. You're going to learn a lot. And overall, he could be, you know, your next padrino, okay, or something. I'm already committing you here, Tony. No, thank you again, estimado Tony, for being a guest here on Career Talk with OG. Everyone, thank you for joining us. Until next time, have a beautiful rest of the week. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.